Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss about muscle sequelae. As you all know that when a muscle get paralyzed, we are specifically discussing about the extraocular muscles of the eye, right? So when any of that muscle get paralyzed, what happens that we know that when the muscle get paralyzed, it does not perform its action, right? So not only that single muscle is involved while the any palsy occurs, right? So in this case what happens that other complications also occur. So in muscle sequelae we are specifically discussing that what will happen when a muscle get paralyzed, what are the further complications, and in this case when we are discussing about muscle sequelae there are four things that will happen. But before moving on to the muscle sequelae, we are just going to discuss some terms, and then we will discuss that what are the four complications when a single muscle get paralyzed, right? So let's move on. So over here we are going to discuss first of all agonist. So agonists are the primary movers of the eye, right? So the muscle that is actually performing the action is the agonist. Over here in this example and the picture you can see that we are going to focus only the right eye. So the right eye is abducting right now. So in this state the primary mover of the eye or the muscle that is performing the action is the lateral rectus. So the lateral rectus is basically the agonist in the right eye, that is the primary mover or that is the muscle which is performing the action. Okay, so next we have antagonist, right? So antagonist is the muscle that opposes the primary mover, or the muscle that was performing the action. On its opposite side is always the antagonist that opposes the action of the muscle which is performing the action, right? So muscle of the same eye, and it's very important to know that it is a muscle of the same eye that is opposite to the agonist. So agonist was actually the muscle which was performing the eye movements and which was performing the primary function, right? So it was performing the action, or it was a primary mover of the eye, and antagonists are the muscle which will oppose that muscle which is performing the action. So in this picture you can see that when the eye is in abducted state, right eye is in abducted state, lateral rectus is the agonist. That means that lateral rectus is the primary mover of the eye, and in the opposite side of the lateral rectus is the medial rectus that will oppose the action of the lateral rectus, right? So it is opposite to the lateral rectus, and the antagonists are always opposite to the agonist and they will oppose the action. Now the synergists are also the muscles of the same eye. So you should remember that agonist, antagonist and synergist are all in the same eye, right? So and we are talking about a single eye right now. So muscles of the same eye that perform the same action, right? These are the synergists. So synergists are those muscles that are performing a single function, right? So over here in this picture you can see that it's the depression of the eye. So in depression of the eye, inferior rectus and superior oblique are active, and they perform or they pull the eyeball to downward, right? So this depression is done by these two muscles and they are in the same eye. So these are the synergists. Now we have the yoke muscles. Yoke muscles are present each in one eye, right? So muscle of the opposite eyes that perform the same action. So they include the muscle of both the eyes. One muscle in right eye and other muscle in the left eye that will perform the same action. In synergist we were discussing that the muscle in a single eye that are performing a single same action, right? But in yoke muscles what is happening, that muscle of opposite eyes, one in each, that will perform a same action. So over here in this picture you can see that the eye is moving in the right gaze. So in the right gaze, right eye will abduct while the left eye will adduct, right? So here the two opposite muscles are activated in order to perform a single function, that is to see in the right gaze. So this type of muscles which are in opposite eyes and are performing the same action, that is moving the eye into the same gaze, are the yoke muscles. And over here in the right eye lateral rectus and the left eye medial rectus are collectively the yoke muscles, and the other name of yoke muscle is contralateral synergist. Okay. So while we were discussing about the muscle sequelae, I have told you that there are 4 complications when a muscle get paralyzed, right? So number 1, what will happen when a muscle get paralyzed? So that paralyzed muscle will always be under action. It means that it is not performing its action and it is now underacted, like it is not performing normally और उसका action क्या है, कम है, right? So always the muscle that is paralyzed has the underaction quality. So now we have discussed about the yoke muscles, and I have told you that muscles of the opposite eyes or one muscle in each eye that perform a single action or the same action. So, and the other name of the yoke muscle is contralateral synergist. So in this case you have to remember the Herring's law that states that when the muscles are performing the same action, or the when yoke muscles are performing the same action, they get equal innervation, right? So when I want to tell you that when a single muscle that is performing its action it get paralyzed, the yoke muscle of this paralyzed muscle will get the overaction. Why? Because the innervation getting to the paralyzed muscle is increased because it was not performing its action normally. So what will happen, that normal muscle will also get the high innervation. That is why it was working, the yoke muscle was working normally, but due to the innervation, high innervation to the paralyzed muscle, it also get the high innervation. And when the normal one get the increased innervation, what will happen, that it will overact. So that is why when a muscle will get paralyzed, its second complication will be that there will be the overaction of that muscle, which is the contralateral synergist or the yoke muscle of the paralyzed muscle. So now the third complication over here is the overaction of the ipsilateral antagonist. Before moving into it, I want to tell you that ipsilateral means that we are talking about the muscle of the same eye, and contralateral means that we are talking about the muscle of the opposite eye, right? Now I have told you, when a muscle gets paralyzed and he wants to perform any action, he is an agonist, right? He is an agonist. It is a primary mover of the eye, but he is now, that muscle is now underacting because it's paralyzed. Now what is happening, that there is no any other force, no excitatory force to inhibit the antagonist. So what will happen, that when a primary mover is not working, so the force opposite to it is working properly. That is why there will be the overaction of the ipsilateral antagonist. So in the third step, what will happen, that the ipsilateral or the same eye antagonist will overact. Now the fourth complication of any muscle palsy will be the underaction of the contralateral antagonist. So why the underaction of contralateral antagonist? Because the yoke muscle of the paralyzed muscle is overacting. So that in that eye the agonist is the yoke muscle which is overacting. So in opposite to that agonist is the antagonist. That is why when the yoke muscle is in overacting state, what will happen, that there will be the inhibitory palsy or underaction of that eye, of the other eye yoke muscles antagonist, and this is a contralateral antagonist, that is its underaction will take place. So these are the 4 complications that can be caused due to any muscle palsy that need to be remembered and learned very carefully. So here we have an example of any palsy, and that is left inferior rectus palsy, so that you can understand the muscle sequelae concept accurately and easily. So over here there is a palsy of inferior rectus in the left eye. Over here you can see, you need to learn this diagram in order to understand and memorize the overaction and underaction of agonist, antagonist and yoke muscles easily. So you can memorize it very easily, like how I have drawn the H. You need to learn this diagram so that it may be easy for you to understand it. So here you can see that when the paralyzed muscle, which is inferior rectus, get paralyzed, what will happen, its palsy will cause the underaction of this inferior rectus. That means that inferior rectus is not working. So it is not, when it is not working, it means that it is underacting. Now next, what happened, we have discussed that there will be the overaction of the yoke muscle. So over here, the yoke muscle of inferior rectus is the superior oblique. That is why I have drawn the H, so that you may know that what are the yoke muscles. When we are viewing or watching into the left gaze and left and down, that is a levodepression. The muscles that are active is the inferior rectus and the superior oblique. Inferior rectus of the left eye and superior oblique of the right eye. So that means these are the yoke muscles that are performing the same action. So when the inferior rectus get paralyzed, there will be the overaction of the superior oblique muscle, right? So now in the third step, we have discussed that there will be the overaction of the ipsilateral antagonist. So over here, the muscle which is opposite to the paralyzed muscle or the agonist is, that is inferior rectus. The antagonist of this muscle is the superior rectus. So this is the antagonist and which will be overacted in this state, right? So in the third step, we have discussed that the ipsilateral antagonist will overact. So here there will be the overaction of the superior rectus. So now in the fourth step, we have discussed that there will be the underaction or the inhibitory palsy of the contralateral antagonist. I have told you the contralateral antagonist is the muscle opposite in the opposite eye, and here the agonist is the yoke muscle which was superior oblique, and its antagonist is the inferior oblique. So the contralateral antagonist is the right eye superior oblique that will also underact, which is the inhibitory palsy because of the overaction of the yoke muscle, right? So this is the fourth step which states that there will be the underaction, or that means that inferior oblique will not work due to the overaction of the yoke muscle. So this is all about muscle sequelae and the complications of any muscle palsy. In the next video, we are going to discuss about the part 3 step test, and before moving to the part 3 step test, you should know these muscle sequelae steps so that you can understand it very carefully and easily. So in case of any query or problem, comment in comment section. Till then, thank you so much.